Hello and welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger. Yes, my voice is getting stronger every day, but it's still not quite back to my usual resonance. I don't have my radio personnel voice back yet. Not like I ever had it in the first place. But anyway, today's Thursday. Yeah, we talked about that already. Um, August 18, 2022. And this day in history was the beginning of a very dark time for some people. You see, August 18, 1612, yeah, we're going way back, 1612, August 18 was the beginning of the Pandal witch trial, one of the more well documented and gruesome witch hunts that had happened in the UK's history. On this day, or beginning with this day, there were 11 people, 9 women and 2 men, accused of witchcraft and put on trial. Within 2 days, 10 out of 11 people were judged guilty and sentenced to be burned at the stake. Can you imagine living in a time like that? I mean, I don't want to bring too much politics into it, but during the pandemic, I hear people talk about government telling us to wear masks, taking away our freedom. The government tells us the social distance, that taking away our freedom, uh, freedom this, freedom that. Like, do people actually understand what it's like to have no freedom? Because there are still places in the world today that have relatively little freedom compared to what we got here in North America. Whether you're in Canada or US, or if you live in the UK today, you have way more privilege and freedom than most other countries, other places in the world. And so it is a little bit mind-boggling when people here start hollering that they don't have freedom, that the government trying to control them. I mean, just imagine yourself back in 1612 in UK, where anyone, especially the church, can come to your door, arrest you, arrest your whole family, accuse you of witchcraft, and then 2 days later, you are sentenced to be burnt at the stake. Look, what kind of lousy time was that, right? So it is to, I don't even know what the word is, commemorate that. The Pendle witch trial, it doesn't seem like something we want to commemorate, but just I guess in memory of the victims of the Pendle witch hunt. And also, there's another reason why we are doing the character. We are looking at the character we will be looking at today, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Um, Let me tell you the short, but sad, very bloody story of a girl named Hope, who was born in medieval Sweden. Hope's father, Matthias, was a nobleman who, on the surface, did a lot of good work for the church. He was known for conscribing and putting together an army to fight in the crusade, and did a lot of God's work and stuff like that. However, to the normal people, Matthias was known, adjusting the camera here, sorry about the shakiness. Matthias was known to be a bit of a tyrant. Anyone who refused to go fight in the crusade was tortured and beaten and executed. Unbeknownst to even his own family and other people in the church, Matthias was also dabbling in dark magic behind closed doors. Hope's mom, on the other hand, Marianne, was a noblewoman who was so pure and good that her lineage traced all the way back to the angelic beings in heaven. Unfortunately, this kind, gentle woman, Marianne, died when Hope was just a teenager, so Hope had to end up being raised by her sadistic, tyrannical father, who was leading a double life, practicing dark magic while doing the work of God. I mean, yeah. Long story short, the peasant finally had enough of being oppressed by mafias, so they rose up. Sorry about that. My Chinese roots just came out there. They rose up, or they risen up in rebellion. Rised up. I can't believe I did that. They risen up in rebellion and uh, attacked the uh, the estate where mafias and Hope were living. Uh, to most people, it looked like Matthias perished in the conflict. However, he actually invoked his dark magic to help him escape. But most people didn't know that at the time. Poor innocent Hope, just this, uh, normal medieval girl. Like she really, like when you first see her in the comic book, Hope just like seemed like your normal medieval noble daughter, like wear very simple clothes, and she was very curvaceous and blonde, very good looking. That needless to say that, but yeah, to this point of our story, Hope was just a normal girl, wearing a crucifix around her neck and doing what noble women do every day: pick flower, recite the Bible, etc., etc. She was caught in the conflict. So when the rebels came to burn down her place, they caught her and they declared that she was a witch. She was a daughter of someone who practiced dark magic. So she was probably a witchcraft user herself, and she had to be burned at the stake. So you see, Hope herself was a victim of being accused of witchcraft, just like people in the Pendle witch trial. Just as she was to be burned at the stake, Hope finally gave in because apparently before the rebellions happened, there was one night when Hope was peeking or listening, eavesdropping outside her father's study, and her dad was doing his practicing dark magic, saying, communing with demon. So Hope actually heard him use one of the incantations, one of the spells he used to summon a demon to him. So, in desperation and fear and rage and sadness, because she was to be blamed for witchcraft, which she never did, and she was going to be burned at the stake, a horrifying way to go for anybody, she opened her mouth and recited the incantation that she heard from her dad. And lo and behold, the incantation summoned forth none other than a demon from hell, and basically uh, said to her, "You want to die? Yeah, well, no. If you don't want to die, you gotta make a deal with me. If you make a deal with me, uh, you bind your soul to the power of hell, and I will help you escape this." I mean, I believe most people at this point will say, yes, 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 okay, whatever the deal is, let me know quickly. I'm about to burn. So that's what Hope did. She bound herself to hell and was transported into hell. When she get to hell, she find herself with all kind of superhuman ability, uh, and she is then recruited by none other than Lucifer himself. And Lucifer basically came to Hope and said, one of my minions saved you, so now you owe me one. Okay, you owe me one. that you have to fight in my army. You have to help me vanquish one of one of these evil bastards that trying to take over the throne of hell from me. So basically, Hope found herself escaping the frying pan and just landing in fire. In another word, literally in fire. And then imagine her shock and heartbreak when she found out that the demon lord that was challenging Lucifer was none other than her own father, her own dad, who was supposedly uh, doing church work, who was supposed to be uh, holier than thou and all that stuff, and he ended up to be a demon lord who was trying to become Lucifer. So at that point, something snapped inside this young, innocent girl who really didn't do anything wrong from this point and like up to this point, and bad things just kept happening to her. So something snapped inside her, and she said, "Okay, you know what? The heck with you guys. The heck with my father who lied to me all these years, who got me killed. The heck with Lucifer, because we all know you can't trust Lucifer. The hell with everyone with you. Okay, if you want to fight, and it looked like all the demon lords were fighting among themselves, trying to become the ruler of hell. So why can't I join the battle? Why can't I try to become the queen of hell? I'm not going to trust anybody ever again. I'm going to basically take it all for myself. And from that point on, with the assistance of some very powerful friends in hell, very powerful demons who fought for her and on her side, Hope from this day onward called herself Lady Death. And uh, basically, from that point on, it's about her taking vanquishing one demon lord and the next. In the end, she actually defeated Lucifer and became the queen of hell. Uh, a lot of blood, a lot of gore, a lot of body parts, a lot of magic, a lot of nudity, uh, a lot of sex. That's basically the story of Lady Death in the Lady Death comic in the 90s. A Lady Death comic was published, I believe, by Top Cow Comic, and it was really riding the trend of the comic in the late 80s and 90s with sexy, curvaceous female uh, doing really badass stuff. And when you talk about badass stuff, it's really hard to be more badass than Lady Death. I mean, other superheroines were really badass, like Wonder Woman and people like that were really badass. But Lady Death put all that to shame. Like she didn't even try to be like a superhero or anything. She just was so mad at all the stuff that happened to her, all the wrongs that were done to her, and all the things that ripped her life apart, that she picked up a sword and well, she picked up many swords. She used her demonic undead magic and just killed evil demons left, right, and center, not because she was good and they were evil, but because they were in the way, because they were uh, fighting for supremacy against her, and she was going to have none of that. So, yeah, kind of a refreshing twist. And of course, when she was human, her name Hope, one of Kitten's favorite name, and the town that we visited last weekend was named Hope. So I thought it's very perfect for this victim of the witch hunt, whose name is Hope, to be our featured star for the day. If you collected action figures in the 80s, 90s, even 2000, and someone asks you who made the best looking female action figure of all time? You may say Todd McFarlane, but most likely, most likely I would say 90% of collectors would say no. Todd McFarlane was great, but his female action figures were maybe the second best looking on the market. When it came to the best looking female action figures on the market ever, even today, it's still not surpassed by anybody. It's more more action collectibles uh, toys back in the 90s. And Lady Death here is a good example of that. Now, um, this Lady Death kind of gives me a bit of a bittersweet feeling because uh, this is an action figure I believe that I would appreciate a lot more if I had eyesight. Actually, when it comes to this Lady Death, let me give you a funny little story about this particular action figure. I have, on more than one occasions, been told by people that look at my action figure collection that this Lady Death got to be one of the best looking action figure in my collection. Now, I don't personally understand it. I mean, she feels really cool, but obviously without eyesight, I can't quite understand fully why people think that she's one of the best looking in my collection. I mean, I have a huge collection, so to say that she is one of the best looking is quite a high praise. But there was one time when a friend of mine came over and we were doing some project and we have to move Lady Death out of the way, and he said, "Can you just move Catwoman over there?" And I actually felt insulted. Like I was like, Catwoman, Lady Death, dude, not Catwoman. Like one of the best looking action figure in my collection, and you just call her Catwoman. Like, yeah. So, uh, I mean, I can see that to people who don't know their characters, that she might look a little bit like Catwoman with that headdress that look like kind of cat ear thing going on. Uh, But yeah, that was a bit insulting. I felt insulted for Lady Death to be called Catwoman in this case. Like I said, this was made by More Action Collectibles in the 90s, and she is uh, kind of translucent azure color, and she's dressed in this really seductive suit of armor. I mean, yeah, if the Queen of Hell going to wear something like this, yeah, I can see why there's so many demons that obey her instructions and stuff like that. Now, don't let the look fool you. Lady Death is not just old sex appeal and nothing else. She super powerful. She is on average about 5 times stronger, 5 times faster than normal human being. Although that tend to fluctuate a little bit depending on what artifact she's using at the time. She also can fly. She has regenerative power. She's immortal. Basically, any power you think Lucifer and Satan have, she got it. And she look a lot better using those powers than those guys as well. Because yeah, sex appeal. That's a really big thing about Lady Death. Very curvaceous and all that stuff. Now, like most of more action collectible uh, creations, she is not really all that well articulated. Her neck can turn, but her hair because her hair goes down to her hip, so that effectively block her neck articulation. Uh, Her arm can maybe go up and down, and her legs can move at the hip, but no, because there's no knee joint, no ankle joint. I don't know why you want her to move her leg at the hip. She's just going to look really weird. So I'm not even going to try to do anything with that. Uh, when you get this action figure, the most amazing part is compared to most action figures today, this is really gorgeous looking, and back then you could get her for like $10. That maybe $8 back in the late 90s when she was released. So yeah, when I think of how cheap action figures used to be and how expensive they are today, I kind of feel kind of sad about that. And it's sad that more action collectibles not still with us, putting out gorgeous female action figures like Lady Death here. Now, Lady Death did come with a shield and a sword. However, her sword uh, broke while she fell off this bookshelf one time. But luckily for her, luckily for me, well, luckily for her, I have a lot of spare swords in my big library of extra weapons and extra armor pieces and stuff like that. Luckily for me, Lady Death in the comic book tend to switch weapons very often, so there's no reason why the sword she came with have to be her only sword. So I just find the sword that is fitting for her, that look relatively like something she would use and call it a day. And here it is. No, unfortunately, because there's no elbow joint or wrist joint, like I said, this action figure have hardly any articulation. So even though I can put a sword in her hand, she really can't hold it in any kind of good-looking pose. Uh, yeah, like holding her sword up that way might be convincing, as if you think she's trying to rally her troop behind her, but it's not very convincing for any kind of attack, sword slashing poses. So that is the unfortunate part about most action figures made by More Action Collectibles and Todd McFarlane at the time was that they didn't have enough joints in them for a lot of these weapons to look right. But at least in the case of McFarlane, he made his action figure look kind of dynamic. That he kind of pre-pose them in some dynamic poses before he puts them in the box. Um, so there's that. But when it came to more action collectibles, uh, his figures look really gorgeous, but they look all kinds of awkward once you put weapons in their hand because they don't have the proper joints to pull off action poses. Now here is Lady Death with her super cool shield. Like this shield is at least up of its time one of the best looking shields I've ever seen on an action figure. So detailed and quite large. It's almost big enough to hide her whole body behind. It has a kind of like a what is that? Like a skull or a demon face in the middle of the shield, and got wicked looking spikes coming out of it. So it's not just a shield. She can really mess someone up if she smacks them over the head or just uh, slam into them with that shield. And the shield clips onto her right arm. Now I think it might clip onto her left arm too if you really want to, but because her she can only hold the sword in her left hand, so it makes sense the shield would go on her right arm. I kind of wish that shield would she can carry it on her back. I think it would be a cool look, but no, no such luck. Um, so yeah, it's a really cool shield, and that reminds me to talk about how a lot of action figures today are so concerned with like child safety and stuff like that that they the spikes and claws and teeth and armor and weapon are made with this really frou-frou, uh, soft rubber thing that just warp all over the place when the temperature get too hot. Not the case on action figures like Lady Death. The idea was Lady Death was a comic for mature audience anyway. I did mention sex appeal. And So Lady Death action figure was meant for mature collectors only. So they didn't pull any punches. All the spikes you see on her armor and her shield, super super sharp. Like if you handle this action figure, it's not like it's going to cut you to ribbon or anything, but she's kind of a painful action figure to handle, if you get my drift, because of how spiny her armor and her shield is. So whether that's good or bad, I personally I find it's kind of cool. Like I like my action figure to feel like they were made for mature collectors. I like my action figure to feel like the weapons are relatively sharp, their armor uh, are relatively strong, and their claws and teeth and spikes are relatively sharp. I like that. Um, but yeah, keep her out of the hand of a child. I mean, honestly, if you give a gorgeous action figure like this and she's full of sharp points to a child, then there's something wrong with you too. Anyway, uh, so that is it with our look at this tragic uh, demon lord, queen of the underworld, uh, called uh, human woman named Hope that found herself pushed into some dreadful bad situation, ending up becoming one of the most powerful demons in hell. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll be back again tomorrow for some Fitness Friday. For now, have a good night.